So, the other day I was browsing through Reddit and stumbled on a post that stopped me cold. It was about a guy whose girlfriend was cheating on him and had absolutely no remorse about it. She was just bluntly honest, like it was no big deal, as if cheating was something totally normal. It was wild. Reading it dragged me straight back to a chapter in my own life that I do not talk about much. Not because I am ashamed, really, but more because it was such a mess at the time. Still, after reading that post, I figured maybe it is worth telling my story too. This all happened about 2 years ago. I had just turned 33, living in Winston, North Carolina, and working a steady job in logistics. I met my ex-fiancée, let's call her Ariana, on a dating app. Now, this was not one of those hookup apps where folks just look for a quick fling. This one was more for people actually trying to find a real relationship. Or at least that was the idea. Ariana was 30 when we matched. Right from the start, we clicked in a way that caught me off guard. It is hard to explain, but we just got each other. We laughed at the same dumb jokes, liked the same weird movies, and could talk for hours without either of us getting bored. It was refreshing, like finding an old friend you did not know you had. After a couple weeks of chatting online and talking on the phone, I finally asked her to meet up in person. I will be real with you, I was nervous. Ariana was absolutely stunning. Like, turn heads on the street kind of beautiful. Not that I think I am hideous or anything. I clean up all right, but she was just on a different level. I actually remember telling myself not to get too serious because I figured girls who looked like her had tons of options. I did not want to set myself up for heartbreak, but she said yes to the date, and man, we had a great time. Everything we had talked about online just felt even better in person. After that night, we started seeing each other regularly, and before long, we were officially a couple. Things moved pretty fast. We were practically inseparable, and for the most part, it felt amazing. But I would be lying if I said there were no red flags. One thing that kept gnawing at me was the way other guys reacted to her. She got a lot of attention, in person, online, everywhere. Sometimes she would laugh and tell me about guys who slid into her direct messages, or the ones who would hit on her right in front of me, like I was invisible. At first, I tried to be cool about it. I trusted her. I really did. She never gave me any solid reason to think she was messing around. I told myself I did not want to be one of those jealous, insecure guys who tries to control his girlfriend's every move. And honestly, I was just enjoying being with her. I felt lucky, and I did not want to ruin a good thing by overthinking it. So when the topic of hall passes came up that night, you know, the kind of late-night chatter couples get into, I figured it was all in good fun. In case you are not familiar, a hall pass is just this imaginary deal where you and your partner each pick one celebrity you would be allowed to sleep with. No strings attached, no questions asked. It is not supposed to be taken seriously, just a harmless way to joke around, right? Usually, I am the one who brings up goofy stuff like that, but this time, it was Ariana who brought it up out of the blue. I thought that was a little odd, but I went with it. She said her hall pass would be Justin Timberlake. Fair enough. I mean, the guy is talented, charming, and has got that whole cool vibe going on. I chuckled and nodded. Totally reasonable, but then she threw in a line that hit me sideways. With a slight grin, she said, honestly, I do not think many celebrities would turn me down. Just like that. And it was not in a joking tone. She said it like it was a fact, calm, casual, confident. Too confident. Now, look, I knew she was gorgeous. That was never in question. She had this natural beauty that could stop traffic. But hearing her say it out loud like that, like it was just something she accepted about herself, made me feel, I do not know, uncomfortable. It felt arrogant. Cocky, even. And it did not sound like her, at least, not the Ariana I thought I knew. Before that, she always came across as humble and down-to-earth, despite how beautiful she was. That moment felt different. Like she was showing a side of herself she had been keeping tucked away. I did not call her out on it. I just laughed along, changed the subject, and tried to brush it off. But the comment stuck with me. For the next few days, I could not shake it. That little smug smile, the confidence in her voice, it replayed in my head more than I care to admit. Eventually, the weird feeling faded, and we went back to normal. But deep down, I never really forgot it. And then, the changes started. At first, it was barely noticeable. Tiny things. But slowly, over the weeks, they started piling up until I could not ignore them anymore. She began coming home later and later. Before, she was always home by around 6 o'clock in the evening, like clockwork. But then, it became 7 o'clock. Then 7:30. Sometimes even later than that. When I asked what was up, her excuses were, well, kind of weak. She would say things like, oh, I lost track of time, or I ran into a friend and we talked for a while. But that did not sound like her. Ariana used to be super open about her day. She would tell me what meetings she had, who she talked to, what was stressing her out. She was detailed, thoughtful. Now, it was vague. Empty answers. Like she did not feel the need to explain anymore. Worse, she started getting snappy when I asked where she had been. If I so much as questioned why she was late, she would get irritated. Real defensive. She would accuse me of not trusting her, or of trying to control her. I do not like arguing, especially when someone is already in a mood, so I usually just backed off, but the pattern kept repeating. More late nights. More weak explanations. And the same annoyed attitude whenever I brought it up. That little voice in the back of my mind, the one that had been quiet for a while, started getting louder. Something was off. I could feel it in my gut, even if I did not want to believe it. Finally, I decided to speak up. Not in an accusing way, just calmly, genuinely. One evening, while we were having dinner, I looked at her and said, hey, is everything all right? You seem a little different lately. She paused, then gave me a half-hearted smile and said, no, everything's fine. I am just stressed out with work. That's all. I wanted to believe her. I really did. I nodded and let it go, but a few days later, nothing had changed. If anything, it got worse. After that conversation, it looked like things were getting better, on the surface, at least. She came home a little more talkative. She would tell me stories about what she had been doing or who she ran into if she was late, but none of it felt real. There was no detail in anything she said. It felt like she was just going through the motions, trying to seem normal. And she barely looked me in the eyes when she talked. One night really drove it home for me. She walked in around 8:30 in the evening, said she had bumped into an old coworker, and that they had gone out for drinks to catch up. The second she said it, I knew she was lying. I cannot even explain how. It was like a light flicked on in my brain. Something in her tone, her body language, her hesitation, everything screamed, this is not the truth. And that is when the realization hit me like a brick. She was not just tired. She was not just going through a rough patch. Ariana was cheating. This was not some misunderstanding or a temporary rough patch. This was something serious. Something real. I could not ignore it anymore. I could not pretend I was imagining things. I had to know the truth. One way or another, I had to find out exactly what was going on. The woman standing in front of me was no longer the same person I fell in love with. Something had changed, and I needed to know what or who was behind it. So there I was, sitting alone in our living room, convinced my fiancée was being unfaithful. My first thought? Check her phone. That seemed like the obvious place to start. Her messages, emails, social media, all the evidence had to be there, right? But almost immediately, I knew that plan was not going to work. For starters, Ariana was always on her phone. I mean, it was practically glued to her hand. There was no chance I could get to it without her noticing. And even if I somehow managed to, what then? I am not exactly a tech wizard. I would not even know where to begin. And if she was really cheating, she probably already deleted anything incriminating anyway. And besides, I did not want to find one weird text message and jump to conclusions. I wanted proof. Real, undeniable proof. I needed to catch her in the act. No guessing, no assumptions. So I went with a different approach. Something I never thought I would actually do in real life. I decided to hire a private investigator. Yeah, I know. Sounds like something straight out of a movie. But I was desperate, and I needed someone who knew what they were doing. I needed real answers, and I wanted to get them without tipping her off. I searched online for private investigators in my area, here in Winston, North Carolina, and found one with a bunch of good reviews. I gave them a call, set up a consultation, and found myself driving to their office the next day. Walking into that office was one of the hardest things I have ever done. It felt like I was admitting defeat. Like I was saying out loud, yeah, this relationship is probably over. But I sat down across from this guy, a middle-aged man who looked like he had been doing this job for decades, and I laid it all out for him. I told him about the hall pass conversation, the weird schedule changes, the phony excuses, everything, but he did not judge me. Not once. He just listened quietly, nodded a lot, and let me talk until I was done. When I finished, he leaned back and said, "You would be surprised how often I hear stories just like yours." He suggested we run surveillance for about 2 weeks, since her schedule was kind of unpredictable, but the price tag for that was more than I could afford at the time, so we settled on 10 days instead. I gave him everything he needed: her phone number, email address, work schedule, even where she parked at her office building. Before I left, he looked me straight in the eye and said, "Do not reach out to me unless it is an emergency. These next 10 days are going to be rough, but you have to let me do my job." I agreed. I knew it was going to be painful, watching the days crawl by, not knowing what he would find. But I had to go through it. I needed to know the truth, no matter how bad it hurt. And let me tell you, those 10 days felt like an eternity. That was the moment everything I feared the most was confirmed. Those 10 days waiting for answers were pure torture. I felt completely powerless, just sitting there every day, imagining every worst-case scenario you can think of. My mind was racing constantly. I could not concentrate on anything. Work was a disaster, I barely slept, and food just did not appeal to me. But the worst part? Ariana kept showing up late like clockwork. 3 different times during that 10-day stretch. She came home well after 9 o'clock in the evening, each time with the same tired, unbelievable excuses. I had last-minute plans with friends, or traffic was awful tonight. The same lines over and over again. What she did not know was that every time she gave me one of those flimsy explanations, it just made my suspicion stronger. All I could think was, this is it. This is the night the investigator's going to catch her red-handed. Her lies were only giving him more chances to get the proof I so desperately needed. And then, finally, the 10 days were up. Right on schedule, I got a call from the investigator. He kept it short. All he said was, "I have the information you were looking for. Can you come in to discuss it?" I said yes right away. There was no way I could hear this kind of thing over the phone. I needed to see his face, hear the tone of his voice, know that what I was about to be told was real. Driving over there, my hands were shaking so badly I had to grip the wheel hard just to stay steady. My stomach was in knots. When I walked into his office, he was already sitting there with a manila envelope laid out on the desk, like something straight out of a detective movie. He gestured for me to take a seat, then asked if I wanted to hear what he found from him directly or look through the documents myself. That I told him I needed to hear it from him first. I figured maybe if he talked me through it, it would soften the blow. I do not know. I just needed a second to mentally brace myself before being punched in the gut. He took a deep breath and said, "Your suspicions were correct." Just like that. No sugarcoating it. No hesitation. He went on to explain that he had followed her to the same apartment building 3 separate times. Every time, she went in alone, stayed for around 2 hours, and came back out, always with the same man. He had even gotten the guy's name and the apartment number. His name was Jacob. Obviously, I am changing the name for this story. But hearing it for the first time, man, I saw red. My first reaction was pure rage. I wanted to find this Jacob guy and do something I probably would regret. But right after that thought came another. This isn't about him. The point was not Jacob. The point was that Chloe, the woman I loved, had betrayed me. The investigator pushed the envelope across the table. I opened it, and there it was, photos. Clear as day. Her and this guy, hugging, holding hands, kissing near her car. Her leaning against the apartment door, smiling at him like they were in some rom-com. All the evidence was laid out right there in black and white. No more doubts. No more, maybe I'm wrong. It was the truth, staring me straight in the face. And it hit me like a truck that I came so close to losing it right then and there in his office. There is a difference between suspecting something and seeing it. The photos made it real. And that reality tore me apart. It was not just the cheating that crushed me. It was everything that came with it. The future I had dreamed of, the plans we made together, the trust one thought we had. All of it just collapsed in front of me. Still, I knew I had to confront her. There was no other way. When I got home that night, I found her on the couch scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. I told her we needed to talk, asked her to sit down. I did not scream. I did not lose my temper. I was calm, too calm, probably. She could tell something was up by the look on my face. She sat across from me, and I just told her everything. I told her I knew about the affair, that I had hired a private investigator, that I had proof, pictures, details, a timeline. I gave her the whole truth. At first, she just stared at me. Her mouth dropped open slightly, like she had been caught completely off guard. Then, she tried to pull herself together, tried to act like it was not a big deal. But I would not let her do that. I laid it all out. The name of the guy, the apartment, the 3 nights, everything. And do you know what she did? Nothing. She just sat there. No denial. No apology. Not even an explanation. Just dead silence. It was like she had nothing to say, or maybe she just did not care enough to say anything. The more I talked, the more furious I became. Her silence made my blood boil. It was like she was not even ashamed. Like she had no remorse at all. Finally, I reached my breaking point. I looked her right in the eye and said, "I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm not going to keep pretending like we're okay when we're not." And that is when she did something I will never forget. She laughed. She stood up and laughed in my face, like it was all some kind of joke to her. Then she started in on this full-blown speech, pacing around the room like she was on stage. "You want to leave me?" she said. "Seriously? Over what? A little fun on the side." "It was just physical," she said, arms crossed like she was defending a parking ticket instead of a betrayal. It didn't mean anything. I stood there stunned as she continued, without a hint of remorse. "So what? I cheated. Big deal. Where exactly do you think you'll go from here? Do you really think you'll find someone like me again?" That's when it hit me. This wasn't about guilt. It wasn't about an apology. This was her putting herself on a pedestal and looking down at me like I should feel lucky to even be hurt by her betrayal. I mean, hasn't it been obvious all these years? "I'm out of your league," she continued with a smirk. "It was one time. That's what you want to ruin everything over." She just kept going. Rambling, really. Acting like I should accept what she did because of how amazing she was. It was like she believed she was offering me some kind of blessing just by staying with me, even if she had someone else on the side. I knew Ariana was confident, borderline arrogant sometimes. But this was another level. This wasn't just someone defending a mistake. This was someone who genuinely didn't care. Her whole attitude screamed, "Deal with it. Because you'll never do better." She wasn't sorry. She wasn't heartbroken. She wasn't even pretending to be remorseful. She was offended that I wasn't falling in line. She really thought I didn't have it in me to walk away. That was the moment my emotions flipped. Up until then, I'd felt devastated, betrayed, even humiliated. But now, I was just furious, not screaming, punching a wall fury. No, this was cold, clean rage. A kind I'd never felt before. I stood up, locked eyes with her, and said something I honestly don't remember word for word, but it was basically, "I can't stand the sight of you." And then I walked out. No bag. No dramatic goodbye. I didn't slam the door. I just left. I couldn't stand to be in the same space as her. Not for another second. It was over. I spent that night in a dingy little motel. The kind with flickering lights and a vending machine in the hallway. I couldn't go back home, not yet. I just needed to breathe, to be alone, to process everything. I lay there in that rock-hard bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying our conversation again and again. Every line, every gesture. It didn't feel real. How could someone you love, someone you trusted, respond like that when caught? The next morning, I drove back to the house to grab some of my things. I figured she'd be at work, but no, she was there. She looked like she'd been crying, but she had that same cold, defensive body language. Like she was trying to put up a front. And then, as I stepped through the door, she hit me with this smug little line. "I knew you'd be back." Like the whole thing had just been a tantrum. Like I was crawling back, ashamed. I didn't even respond. I walked past her, grabbed some clothes, toiletries, a few personal things. I didn't plan on taking everything in one trip, just enough to leave again quickly. "I'll come back for the rest later," I said flatly. She just stared at me, her face twisted in disbelief. She genuinely couldn't believe I was serious, like the idea of me leaving her was absurd. She didn't say anything else until I was almost out the door. Then she muttered something under her breath. I didn't catch it, and honestly, I didn't care to. I was done. Since then, I've tried to figure out why she acted the way she did. I still don't fully understand it. Maybe she was bored. Maybe she was insecure about aging or the rhythm we'd fallen into. Maybe she needed attention or validation or drama. Or maybe she had always seen me as the safe option, the guy who'd never leave, the dependable one she could walk all over. I don't know. That's just me speculating, trying to make sense of the senseless. But after I left, the messages started coming in. At first, they were sarcastic, mocking. "Oh, so dramatic," one said. "Let me know when you're done pouting," read another. It was like she thought the whole thing was temporary. Like she genuinely believed I'd come crawling back once I cooled off. But a few days later, I returned to the house with a friend to get the rest of my stuff, and that's when it hit her. That's when she realized I wasn't bluffing. Her expression said it all: shock, disbelief, panic. She didn't say much that day, just stood in the corner watching as I packed up the last pieces of my life from our shared home. One of the final texts I ever got from her read, "You'll never find anyone like me again. And you know what? I hope I never do." I blocked her after that. I couldn't take any more of it. I needed to heal, and she wasn't going to let me do that. The whole breakup was a disaster, no way around it. It took me a while to feel human again, let alone put myself back out there. But you know how life is, it moves forward, whether you're ready or not. A few months after everything blew up, I got invited to my 15-year high school reunion. At first, I wasn't planning to go. I felt like a mess, emotionally drained and still carrying the weight of it all. But some old friends convinced me. Said it'd be good for me, a chance to have fun, see familiar faces, get out of my own head. I'm glad I went. The vibe was great. Laughter, drinks, stories from the old days. Everyone was in that weird space between nostalgia and midlife chaos. It felt good. Normal. And then, there she was. Bella. Tall. Effortlessly beautiful. Confident in a way that made you feel it without her even saying a word. We had gone to school together, had a couple of classes, were always friendly, but we weren't close back then. She was one of those girls who just had it. Grace, charm, cool without even trying. After high school, she went on to become a model, a pretty successful one, too. I'd seen her face in magazines, online fashion ads, that kind of thing. If you've ever even glanced at style blogs, you'd probably recognize her name. But that night at the reunion, she wasn't Bella the model. She was just Bella. And that night changed everything. I hadn't spoken to Bella in at least 7 years, maybe more. So when I walked into that reunion, I wasn't expecting much. I was just there to have a good time, catch up with old friends, drink some lukewarm punch, and feel mildly shocked at how much older we'd all gotten. But as I was making my rounds, chatting with familiar faces, I realized something. Bella wasn't there. At least, not yet. I was a little bummed. Not that I expected anything to happen, but she'd always been this effortlessly cool, beautiful presence, and I thought it'd be nice to see what she was up to these days. Instead, I saw her best friend from high school. They'd always been tight, and apparently, they still were. That alone kind of warmed my heart, seeing that success hadn't pulled Bella away from her roots. That kind of loyalty said a lot about her character. I went over to say hi. We caught up, shared a few laughs, and she was smiling the whole time. But when I casually brought up Bella, just mentioned her name, her smile stretched even wider. She leaned in, like she was about to drop a secret. "I know she's going to kill me for saying this," she said, "but Bella's always had a crush on you." I actually laughed out loud. "Come on," I said, shaking my head. "Bella? A literal model? Had a crush on me? I mean, really? Even back in high school, we were cool with each other, but we didn't exactly hang in the same crowd. I was more of the dependable, fade into the background kind of guy. She was, well, Bella. Confident, magnetic, already half a star. And now, years later, she's a professional model, featured in magazines, online campaigns, probably in the closets of people way cooler than me. The idea that she'd ever looked at me that way? It just didn't compute. I told her friend that Bella probably didn't even remember me, but she just rolled her eyes. "No, seriously. She does. She even asked me to check if you were still as cute as you were in high school," she said, nudging me, and then she added, with a little smirk, "She's still into you. So if you're single and not scared of a girl with a little baggage, maybe you should reach out." I couldn't stop thinking about that conversation the rest of the night. I mean, after everything that had happened with Chloe, being betrayed, manipulated, told I'd never be good enough, this felt like someone had thrown me a life raft. Not just any someone, either. Bella. The same kind of woman Ariana always believed was out of my league. It hit me just how wrong Ariana had been. Her cruel words, her arrogance, it was all projection. Bella's interest? It gave me something back I didn't even realize I'd lost, confidence. Hope.so. I decided to shoot my shot. I figured, what did I have to lose? I found Bella on Instagram. Thankfully her account wasn't private, and sent her a message. Nothing intense. Just a friendly, "Hey, it was great hearing about you the other night. Hope you're doing well." I also let her friend know I'd reached out, just in case Bella didn't usually check her messages from people she didn't follow. I didn't want it to get lost in the clutter. Then I waited. And waited. 0.5 days passed. Nothing. Eventually, I chalked it up to wishful thinking. Maybe she was busy. Maybe her friend exaggerated. Maybe she didn't remember me as fondly as I'd hoped. I had almost forgotten about it, until she messaged back. And not just a polite response. It was enthusiastic. Oh my gosh, Keith. It's been so long. And yeah, I don't know if it's true or not, but I've heard that the more letters a woman repeats in her messages, the more she likes you. And let me tell you, this one had extra O's, extra L's, everything. I took it as a good sign that we started messaging regularly, catching up on pretty much everything, high school, what we'd been doing since, work, family, all of it. It was easy, natural, like we'd never skipped a beat. After a few days, Bella suggested we switch to FaceTime. She said, "I'm so tired of typing," and I wasn't about to argue. From then on, we were talking nearly every day, sometimes for 10 minutes, sometimes for an hour. It was never boring. I got to see her face light up when she laughed. I heard her stories about the modeling world, photo shoots, jet lag, backstage madness, picky clients, and everything in between. At the time, she was in Brussels for a campaign. She even sent me a few behind-the-scenes photos from the set. It was fascinating seeing her in her element, confident, thriving, real. It made me feel closer to her, even across thousands of miles. Those video calls started to blur the line between casual chatting and something more intimate. We never said it out loud, but it felt like we were dating. Or at least on the edge of it. So one night, I decided to risk sounding cheesy and just ask, "What are we, Bella?" She laughed softly. "Well, we're really good friends," she said, dragging out the word with a playful smile. "But I'd like to be more." That was all I needed to hear. I grinned like a kid and said, "Okay, so would you like to be my girlfriend?" She said yes. No hesitation. No pause. Just a bright, easy, absolutely. And let me tell you, after everything I'd been through with Chloe, hearing someone like Bella say that, it felt like the sun coming back after a long, bitter storm. Of course, the long-distance thing wasn't ideal. She was traveling constantly, flying from one country to the next. I was still rooted here, working my regular job, living my regular life. I'd had a long-distance relationship once before, years ago, and I swore I'd never do it again. The late-night calls. The lonely weekends. The feeling like you're living parallel lives instead of a shared one. But this felt different. This was Bella. And she wasn't just a beautiful woman on a screen. She'd become someone important to me. Someone I didn't want to lose just because of geography. So I did something bold. I booked a flight to Brussels. Bella told me she'd be in Brussels for a few weeks, working on a big campaign. And I decided that was the perfect opportunity to go see her, and maybe get a little taste of her world while I was at it. I booked the flight, packed light, and headed out. And let me tell you, that trip changed everything. Brussels itself was stunning. The old world charm, the chocolate shops, the cobblestone streets, it was beautiful. But none of that compared to being there with her. It honestly felt like I'd stepped into a dream. We explored the city hand in hand, laughing over waffles, getting caught in the rain, stealing kisses on quiet bridges. It reminded me that love wasn't dead. That one betrayal, no matter how deep, didn't mean all was lost. There were still amazing people out there. People worth the effort. Bella showed me that one of the best moments was when she brought me to one of her photo shoots. I got to watch her work, truly work, and it was incredible. Seeing her transform in front of the camera, watching everyone on set hustle around her, seeing how focused and confident she was, it gave me a whole new appreciation for her. I stood off to the side, quietly cheering her on, taking some photos of my OWN. In that moment, I didn't feel like an outsider. I felt like I belonged there. Like I was part of her world. So there I was, living it up in Brussels, feeling on top of the world with Bella. I snapped a bunch of photos at her shoot, nothing too personal, just behind-the-scenes stuff, and decided to share a few of them on Instagram, but I didn't post them on my main feed. I tossed them up on my close friends story. You know, the green circle. I figured just a few people would see it. Here's the thing though. I totally forgot Chloe was still on my close friends list. Yeah, that Chloe. The ex who detonated our relationship and ghosted me a year ago. I'd blocked her on everything else, Facebook, phone, email, the whole 9 yards. But I hardly ever use Instagram, so she slipped through the cracks, and of course, she saw the story. A few hours later, I got a message from her. First time in almost a year. It just said, "Who's that? Why are you playing groupie?" With a laughing emoji at the end. I stared at it for a second. Not angry, not even surprised. Just disappointed. I replied simply, "That's my girlfriend." Nothing more. Then I saw it, the typing bubble, popping up, disappearing, showing up again. Over and over, for about 10 minutes straight. Like she was writing something, deleting it, rewriting. Finally, all she sent was, sure. Snarky. Bitter. Classic Chloe. I took a breath, then typed my last message to her. I said, you didn't trust me then, and that's fine. But if you thought I was out of your league, then Bella's out of this world. And just to twist the knife a little, I added, how's your man from back then doing? Petty? Yeah, maybe, but after everything she put me through, I think she earned that one. She read the message. Never responded. I blocked her. For real this time. No more access to my life. No more lurking in the shadows. And yeah, I'll admit it, I was curious what she felt reading that. But it doesn't matter. That chapter's closed. And that, my friends, is how it all went down. It's been a wild ride, from betrayal and heartbreak to rediscovery and something real. Bella and I have been together ever since that Brussels trip, and I've honestly never been happier. I won't lie to you. I've thought about proposing. No promises, no spoilers, but it might happen before the end of the year. Don't tell her. Bella is a true blessing. She's kind, hilarious, whip-smart, stunning inside and out, and she makes me feel like I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. Like I'm enough. Looking back, I'm genuinely glad things with Chloe fell apart, because if they hadn't, I never would have found this happiness. I never would have found her. Some people might judge me. Say I'm only with Bella because she's a model, or that long-distance relationships never work. But honestly, I don't care. Let them think what they want. They don't know what we have. They don't know her. If it somehow doesn't work out, I'll own that. You can come back here and say, I told you so. But truth be told, I don't think I'll be writing another story like this anytime soon. So that's it. That's my story of betrayal, heartbreak, and finding love in the most unexpected place.